So my first impressions of these pedals, my personal favorite is this Silk Drive straight away. Stick around and I'll explain why. I think they all sound good, but I've jumped to this one first up. Welcome back to NoiseGate. Andy here. I am today checking out a couple of these new Vox pedals. Now these pedals have been out a little while, but getting back to why I like the Silk Drive. Now, as we all know, in terms of guitar tone, this is a highly subjective topic and everybody will have a different opinion. These three all sound awesome, don't get me wrong. The reason that I like this Silk Drive is that I like lower gain pedals. I like stacking lower gain pedals, and I think that the interaction that the new tube adds to this particular pedal makes it really dynamic as a low gain overdrive. I've been interested to try them and I've finally got my hands on them, and they are part of the new tube technology that Vox have begun implementing into their products. So this is kind of a nano micro tube kind of technology that essentially gives you the response of an actual tube amp in a pedal. Now, one of the things that I think straight away caught my eye about these pedals, and you can see it as I play here, is this oscilloscope that you can see at the top of the pedals here, which is a really kind of neat addition to a pedal, because let's be honest, when we are pedal gazing and staring at our pedal boards, which we know we shouldn't be doing live, but we're doing because we're guitarists, we want something cool to look at, and that's a good bit of fun, I reckon. But the important thing is, how do these pedals sound? Now, the pedals here have kind of 4 flavors, and we've got the Silk Drive, which is sort of a Fender type blackface kind of clean, but also a bit of a pushed sound. We've got the Mystic Edge, which is much closer to an AC30 type. We've got the Copperhead Drive, which is basically a Marshall in a box. And then we've got the Cutting Edge, which is essentially a Mesa Boogie or a triple rectifier type heavy gain sound. All of these pedals feature an incredible addition, which on the back is a little switch here that's standard, pre, or cab. Now, standard is for running directly into an amp to add a Fender, Vox, Marshall, or Boogie flavor to your current rig. Pre is for running into, say, the aux pedal or another cab sim type pedal, IR loader perhaps, and using these pedals as a preamp. And finally, the cab sim on here, as it probably you figured out, this is for running directly into your interface or into a mixer. And you can use these as an amp in a box and run it straight into your mixer and not have to worry about miking up an amplifier, which is of course something that everybody is doing a lot more of these days. We're gonna have a listen to these as pedals running into an amp and also running into the interface directly to hear the cab sim. So let's start by having a listen. This is my direct sound, and I'm going into a Friedman Buxom Betty simulation via the UA Apollo. So pretty nice, standard, clean sound. Now, the Silk Drive adds a really nice kind of pushed deluxe reverb type overdrive to that sound. So let's have a listen. Deluxe reverbs are known for their great clean sound, but they also have a really amazing drive once you get them about halfway up their kind of volume. And I think that that's probably one of the more underutilized parts of a deluxe reverb is its drive. And it feels really, with these new tubes, they feel really nice. It feels really responsive and, reactive to my playing, which is excellent. We've also got a bright switch on here, so if you're playing a darker guitar, get that bright. On this particular Vox Bobcat guitar I'm playing today, I don't really need that because it's quite a bright guitar. But a really, really cool sound. Now let's have a listen to the AC30, the Mystic Edge. gives all of that AC30 kind of jangle. And you can see we've got a few of the giveaways here, specifically this tone cut knob as made famous in AC30. So if I go all the way to the left, I have no tone cut. And it's a much brighter, a little bit more gain too. And if I go all the way to the right, I have full tone cut, which means I'm cutting a lot of that tone. Now the thing I like about that, if you roll the tone all the way down on an overdrive pedal, sometimes you get a kind of an unusable, muddy drive sound, but I think that this stays really clear and articulate, even though we've lost a lot of, or taken away a lot of that top end. Again, in this one, we've got a bright switch, so the interaction between the tone cut and the bright switch can be cool as well. So it's bright with the tone cut on. Hear that brightness, just like the amp you add into the top boost channel, say of a Vox, you get a little bit more gain. A similar kind of thing happens with this, a little bit more effective gain when you add the bright and start messing with the tone cut and the interaction there. We then move on to the Copperhead Drive, which is sort of a Marshall, and this again really sort of the giveaway is the gold top, I suppose. But I've got the bright engaged on this one because I reckon that the Marshall brightness is something that's really important to include in your sound when you're kind of going for that Marshall thing. Think Tom Morello's kind of tone is kind of your classic Marshall as far as I'm concerned. But that does that really well, and you can of course add in a lot more gain and add in some mids, which sometimes a Marshall is occasionally in need of assistance of, and low end too. But I'm going to turn that bright off, turn the bass up, turn the gain up. With the bright back in. Look, to me, I prefer the bright, but I think that it's a really great kind of Marshall attack on the note, which is something that is, if you're going for that riff rock thing, killer sound. And finally, if we move along to the cutting edge, which is a sort of a Mesa Boogie type pedal. The important thing in this is this tight control here, and this kind of tightens up the bottom end. If I turn this all the way out, we've got sort of a cliche of this amp is a really big flubby bottom end, which especially in those kind of palm muted chords you can really hear is kind of a bit boomy. But if I tighten that up, really great kind of heavy gain sound there. Now again, you can adjust the EQ, 3-band EQ on all these pedals. So a really killer Mesa Boogie, or a kind of heavy type guitar tone. So the thing again that makes these pedals I think really unique is the fact that they have got this preamp and cab sim. So I'm going to get my wonderful off-camera assistant to turn our amp sim on our Universal Audio off, and so that we are going to have just a direct into the interface, and I'm going to switch all of these over to the cab sim setting. Now let's start, I'll start without this on first. So there's no amp sim, and here is no cab sim, and the Mesa Boogie, or the cutting edge, going straight into the interface. Sounds, as you can probably predict, very abrasive. You hear all of that horrible high end that you don't want when you are plugging a high gain pedal directly into an interface. Cab sim, of course, does its wonderful EQ sculpting. So I now have a much more palatable tone, but going directly into my interface. So again, with this stuff, you will sculpt accordingly. I feel like now that I don't have the amp sim, I need a little bit more bass back in the tone. A bit more of that scooped sound. And all of these pedals have their cabs on them and they sound really good. So I'm going to go to the Silk Drive quickly here. So I get a really nice pushed clean sound. Again, that bright switch kind of adds a little bit of gain. The Vox here. And the Marshall. The final feature that I think is really, really cool about these pedals, especially if you're going to be using them, as I would predict that somebody might, is by using all four of them as sort of a 4-channel amp. At the back here, and if I flip these up so we can see that, you can see there's this little link cable here. Now this link cable allows you to plug in standard headphone size jack, 3.5mm jack, into each of the pedals. And when you turn one on, it'll turn the others off, which makes this function really like a 4-channel amp. The coolest thing about that is if you split out of this one with a 3-way headphone splitter, and then you go into each one of them. If I turn that on, when I go over to my Vox, it'll turn that off automatically for me. As a feature that you might have just set up like this on your desk in the studio, that is an incredible tool because it just means that you can push one pedal and you get that change of sound, especially if they're at your feet. That is a really, really unique feature. I don't think I've seen that before, and a really, really great way to use this as a broad tonal palette for recording or for live use, of course, as well. Overall, I think that these pedals sounded really amazing. The functionality of them is what I like the most about them. So the fact that they can be used as a preamp, as a full cab sim, or just as an overdrive pedal into your amp, and it's all switchable by there, makes it really, really versatile as a pedal. The fact that they also have this new tube technology in them makes them feel and sound like a tube amp, which of course we're all striving to get all the time. This makes these a very, very useful studio tool, live tool, as well as something that you can use as an addition to your amp. Let's say that you have a Fender something or other, and you want a bit of a Vox chime on a particular song. You obviously don't own a Vox. Aside from, of course, going out and buying a Vox, which you should do anyway, you could get this Mystic Edge and plug that straight into your amp and get the chime and the mid-range and the gain of a Vox, or the Copperhead for a Marshall, or the cutting edge for a Mesa Boogie type drive. That makes them really, really versatile on their own, and I think a pedal that probably, I'll be honest, I have kind of slept on a little bit and have been interested in trying them out, and have been given the opportunity by Vox here to do so today, and I've been really impressed. I really like them. Let us know in the comments what you think. Did you have a favorite? Maybe it was the Silk Drive as well. Maybe it was the cutting edge. Let us know. As always, thanks for watching Noisegate. We'll see you next time.